Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so human beings are literally biologically wired to fit in. I mean, if you look back millennia ago, standing out from the tribe, that meant risking your actual survival. No way around it. Today, we're diving into a super fascinating concept from our source material, that intense, almost painful discomfort we feel when we try to challenge societal norms. We're going to map out the architecture of defiance, basically what's actually happening in our minds and our environments when we try to break social boundaries. If you've ever felt that deep pit in your stomach when you go against the grain, well, we're going to explore exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can overcome it.
So why does breaking the rules feel so incredibly uncomfortable? I want you to think about a time you tried to step outside your comfort zone. Doing something that literally nobody else was doing. It feels deeply, deeply unsettling, right? Interestingly, neuroscience actually tells us that standing out and facing potential rejection triggers a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. Now here's the kicker. That is the exact same part of your brain that processes physical pain. So when you step out of your comfort zone, you're not just feeling mildly awkward. Your brain is literally sounding an alarm bell, acting as if you've been physically injured simply because the majority of people might be against your idea. It's wild.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the familiar box, also known as the comfort of the status quo.
At the very heart of this topic is a massive universal tension. It's the tug-of-war between our internal drive to try something completely new and society's powerful, almost overwhelming instruction to stay in line. Our source material puts it perfectly. It's like being comfortable in a familiar box. You see, societal norms are incredibly effective at shaping our behaviors and beliefs over time, and they build this invisible architecture right around us. It's an environment specifically designed to keep us safely tucked inside. Think of it like sitting in your favorite armchair. Sure, it's old, and yeah, it has a weird spring poking you in the back, but hey, it's your weird spring. It's entirely predictable. And as humans, we naturally gravitate toward that predictability rather than causing any friction.
But here's the trade-off. We're looking at a real sense of security versus severely limited potential. That familiar box, it definitely provides a very real, tangible feeling of safety. But the huge downside is that it completely limits what you can achieve. Our brains, quite frankly, often prefer predictable mediocrity over unpredictable greatness. So staying comfortably inside that box means you are actively limiting your capacity for personal growth. You're basically stopping yourself from experiencing anything genuinely new or transformative.
Moving right along to Section 2, why we stay inside, or as I like to call them, the invisible walls.
To ever break out, we really have to empathetically acknowledge the specific psychological barriers that keep us paralyzed in the first place. The fear of disapproval or rejection is an unbelievably strong deterrent. We usually stay inside not because we lack the talent or the ability to do something new, but honestly, because facing rejection is just overwhelming. Again, throwing it back to evolutionary psychology. Getting kicked out of the tribe meant you were out in the wilderness alone trying to fight off a saber-toothed tiger by yourself. No thanks. Your brain still processes social rejection as a literal life or death scenario, and that makes staying inside the box feel like the absolute only logical option.
So the very first invisible wall we slam into is the fear of the unknown. It's that paralyzing lack of certainty when you're breaking new ground without any kind of roadmap. When you step out into the void, there is no guide telling you what's going to happen next. In the human brain, it hates burning calories trying to predict the unpredictable, so it naturally just halts us right in our tracks. This lack of certainty isn't just a minor hurdle, you guys. It is a heavy, paralyzing weight that makes turning back to the familiar box look incredibly tempting.
Compounding all of that unknown is social pressure. This is the risk of isolation and feeling like a total outsider because the majority prefers the status quo. Think about classic herd mentality. There are famous psychological studies on this, like the Asch conformity experiments, which showed that people will literally deny what is right in front of their own eyes just to agree with the group. It's crazy. Going against the grain carries a massive social risk. The majority wants things to stay exactly as they are, which means pioneering a new path practically guarantees you're going to face some lonely moments of isolation.
And then, of course, there's self-doubt. That nagging tendency to question your own abilities when you're pioneering a new path. The pressure isn't just coming from the outside. The most intense pressure is often internal. This is exactly where imposter syndrome thrives. When you're out there all alone, your internal monologue starts asking things like, who do you think you are? Why do you think you can do this when literally no one else is? This internal struggle is a perfectly normal response to stepping into uncharted territory. And honestly, it validates exactly why breaking out of our familiar routines requires so much darn energy.
All right, let's flip the script. Section 3,
The power of defiance and reaping the rewards.
So if the box is so secure and the walls are so intimidating, why on earth should we leave? Well, because pushing past those limitations brings incredible, genuinely life-changing rewards, personal growth, innovation, and impact. Pushing boundaries isn't just about rebellion for the sake of it, it's a critical mechanism for development. Every single time you face that fear of rejection and take action anyway, you build immense resilience. Plus, think about it. Practically every major leap in human history, whether it was Galileo challenging our view of the solar system or a modern tech disruptor completely changing how we communicate, came from someone willing to challenge the norm. Your unique perspective, once it's finally freed from that box, is precisely what creates meaningful, positive change in the world.
Which brings us to Section 4, How to Break Free, or Escaping the Box. To actually break free, we need a plan. We need practical execution. Step 1 is to challenge your beliefs by questioning the validity of norms. You really have to stop and ask yourself, am I doing this because it's actually the best way, or just because it's the way everyone else does it? Step 2 is building self-confidence by empowering your own choices. You build this muscle by making small, unconventional decisions every single day, proving to your brain that the world doesn't end when you break a minor rule. And step 3, which is perhaps the most critical part of the whole shebang, find a supportive community that encourages growth. You cannot do this entirely alone. You have to actively seek out the other rule breakers, the people who are going to celebrate your defiance rather than pressure you to conform.
So, now that you've seen the architecture of defiance, understood the evolutionary and psychological walls of your familiar box, and seen the immense rewards waiting for you on the other side, the choice shifts entirely to you. What boundary will you break today? Seriously, think of just one small, familiar routine or social expectation you can challenge right now to start building that momentum. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.